Get to the real reason y'all are here tonight. This idea kind of came to us as a recommendation. I've heard a couple people say they would like to see some kind of personal aircraft maintenance. And the guys that are doing this tonight, they actually like volunteered it over a year ago, and I was like, that's a good idea, and I wrote it down. And then a couple months ago, I was like, I should probably call Doug. So, without further ado, let me introduce y'all's headliners. They are both airline captains on the 737. They're both IAs, AMPs. They come with a lot of knowledge. They're both local pilots. So without further ado, please welcome Doug Lee and Bjorn Anderson.
So this isn't as big a turnout as Juan Brown had. What happened? And I'm really surprised you didn't raffle first, because usually, really
nobody left, so that's okay. That's good.
So here we are. Well, let's see if this works. We brought Becky, my wife, she's our IT support.
Nice.
She won the raffle.
I know.
And she did a little trading.
Free.
Ooh.
Wow.
Right.
There's that.
Oh, okay,
On there.
all right.
It's looking good.
You can
move it around.
336.
60. Pass go.
All right. It's not our social security. Uh-oh, that didn't work there. Oh,
Uh-oh, everything's showing.
this is
No lights.
social security. Here we go.
Can build an airplane, but can't turn on a
Yeah.
computer.
I like all the ones, okay?
Carburetor.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So we're going to share some really good war stories, but now that Becky's here, we really can't tell them all. I told her she didn't have to stay for the whole night, so we might get the good stories a little later. Anyway, I'm Doug. This is Bjorn. Bjorn lives in Quincy, just up the road. Becky and I live here in town, and a lot of familiar faces. Some not so much. We've only been here for 6 years, and I just moved my plant here a couple of years ago. So. Anyway, thanks for coming, and we're actually surprised that people want to hear about this. We like it, but we don't expect everybody in the world to like it, so we're going to keep this very informal. Questions come up, please speak up. We're very approachable, and anyway, we like what we're doing. So anyway, why are we here? So preventative maintenance by the owner or operator. Okay, here we are. A little bit about Bjorn. You want to go first?
Yeah. So that's just a quick snapshot there. So started off in aviation really young. 7th grade, I started flying gliders out of the Fremont Airport, which was sky sailing. If any of you guys know that, so it kind of dates me there. And then Oakland, and then it was the time if you wanted to fly, you did anything you could. So that's kind of what led towards getting an AMP license, and got into maintenance with the flight school and I just couldn't get out of maintenance. So I've been working in GA maintenance pretty much ever since, and I love it. So a couple little pieces there. We both fly for Alaska Airlines. I'm on the FOCA team, which is Flight Operations Quality Assurance. We analyze the data that is recorded on the aircraft, follow trends, and then I got to participate in the recent NTSB investigation for Alaska because of my maintenance background. So that was kind of an exciting time.
That was the big door blowout.
Big door blowout, yeah.
For me, the same thing. I grew up with an airplane in my garage. My dad built a wooden airplane, and that seed was planted really early. Somewhere along the line, story for another time, I ended up flying helicopters as my first commercial job, and largely because I came from a pretty heavy maintenance background also. True to both of us, we're really gearheads that love to fly too. And I don't know what I would do with one or the other. We just like it so much. Yeah. We're just nerds. So anyway, anyway, along the road, we're currently now Alaska captains. My special duty for the airline, I do what's called functional check flights. So any airplane that goes into heavy maintenance after we need to validate all the systems, you can't do everything on the ground. So usually that's a 4-hour pre-flight, 4 to 6 hour pre-flight, 4-hour flight. We take it up, we do all the maneuvers to the absolute edge of the envelope, and we do all the troubleshooting. So anything a line captain can't do, we will do. It's aircraft acceptance, troubleshooting, aircraft deliveries, whatever. It's the fun stuff. So we're pretty lucky about that. I don't have to see flight attendants, don't have to see passengers, and I don't have to wear a uniform. So it's great.
I don't think you meant it.
But overall, that my favorite airplane's my kids. So anyway, but that's enough about us. We have been doing this for a long time. We're both in our 50s, although, and so 30, 40 years now, I guess. Anyway, so that's us. Why are we here? We know it's really the pizza and the goodies. But since we're on that subject, there was an earlier picture of the Crowman yellow S-61 helicopter, the yellow one, in previous slides. And Becky asked me today, you gotta have stories, you're gonna bore the heck out of these people. So, just last night, I'm talking to the pilot for Crowman. So this crash happened 2022. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because small things end up being big things sometimes. This accident, the captain was a designated pilot examiner, so you can't get much higher than that. The co-captain was the chief pilot for Crowman. They combined had over 20, 30,000 hours in helicopters alone. Big Island in Hawaii, they were doing a lift, they were picking up rocket missiles, and they were coming in for landing, they were turning into the wind, and about 400 feet, the helicopter pitched over, and they both died. That was because of a $20 car key that was left off. So, little things lead to really big things sometimes, and that's a pretty extreme example, but it's real. These things kill you. And so, that's why we're here. Because I love doing this stuff. I want to do it as long as I can. I don't want to die doing it. So, that's why I'm here.
And I think the missing chain and a fuel cap, there's catastrophic, and then sometimes it's just inconvenient. And back when I was a mechanic at flight school, we had a fleet of Cessnas and Cherokees, and we had reoccurring squawks that would come along. And on one of the 152s, we had a missing chain on one of the fuel filler caps, and it was just something that we always knew. 6.5 mic, right side, no chain, just make sure it's on there. Student goes out there one day, and it's windy, takes the fuel cap off, and he sets it over on top of the fuel tank because it keeps blowing off the top of the wing. He finishes filling, taxis off, never puts the cap back in. Takes off, goes on the downwind, he's going out to the practice area, and he looks out, clears his area, and he sees fuel streaming off the right side that's getting siphoned out. Panics, goes and lands down in Byron. Safe, everything's good. Calls the flight school and says, hey, this is what happened. We leave the maintenance shop, go over to the fuel island, and we see the fuel cap sitting on top of the pump. I'm like, well, there you go. So inconvenient, and it was embarrassing, and we had to drive the fuel cap all the way back out to Byron. He didn't want to take off again and do that. Smart. But what it showed us is that, even the littlest thing sometimes can lead to something that's unexpected. Whether it was a person renting an airplane or a student pilot, and you have that stress that's added to a normal routine flight, sometimes can have a little bit more catastrophic situations. So little stuff like that, stuff to look for.
Embarrassing on one hand, fatal on the other. So anyway, but we're here today to talk about what you can do. So who here in the room is a private pilot? Raise your hand. Okay. And who here owns an airplane? Okay, fantastic. So, as per the FAA rule, they want us pilots to be engaged. They want us to be intimately knowledgeable about our airplanes. And so, there's this rule that says an owner, operator can work on their airplane, provided you're not doing it for hire. So the 121, 129, 135, that's for hire, that's commercial use. Anybody using their airplanes for commercial use? Probably not in this room. So if it's an airplane for pleasure, then you can do some things, not everything, but you can save yourself a whole lot of money. You can be a better pilot because you're going to be more in tune with your airplane. And What was the third one? Anyway, it's a good thing to do. Anyway, but there are requirements. The basic requirement is you have to, at minimum, have a private pilot certificate. You can't as a student pilot, and it has to be non-commercial. So,
Everything that you can do, there's 31 items that you can do that's listed as preventative maintenance, and that's 4317 Appendix A sub C. So that's the same category where they'll go through and they'll define what is a major alteration, major repair, and it goes into preventative maintenance. And so each one of these you can do as an aircraft owner operator with a private pilot's license, and you can perform this maintenance on your aircraft. So this is what you are authorized to do. Should you do it? Maybe it's a question we should ask, have you done it before? Have you changed a tire before? Have you changed your spark plugs before? Have you changed your oil before? So there's a lot of things that are listed here that maybe you've done on a car, or maybe you have mechanical aptitude and you would like to do, but there's still some experience or some knowledge that you should look into before you probably take on that task for your airplane. So let's look at the tire. That's one of the things listed, you can change a tire. Just throw out some ideas. What are some things that we might need to change a tire on an airplane?
So we'll walk through this. So if you want to change your tire on your airplane, you're going to save a lot of money. The IA doesn't have to do it during the annual. And Mike, what are you going to do?
Taking it to Sierra.
Can't afford it.
I'm calling you. I'm gonna wait till you drive by and I'm gonna go, Doug, get over here.
You just did that last week.
Hey, Doug, you're gonna hate me, but I got
All
a
right,
question.
we'll walk through it. Okay, here's where you're really gonna save money.
Yeah.
So, fairly straightforward, you split the wheel halves, and generally speaking, you split the wheel halves.
Jan doesn't even have a jack, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's back up.
Don't you
All right.
wanna deflate it first?
Nope.
Yeah,
you're
right,
good.
so, okay, so now we're just gonna throw it out there.
Yeah.
All right, so, what about your tire? You gonna get it from Grand Auto, or can you do that?
Aircraft spruce.
There you go. So aircraft spruce, FAA, PMA, authorized part. But how do you know what part to get? Anybody? Good question,
Can you
huh?
change
You
your
call
tire
aircraft
size?
spruce, and you say, I have a 1972, 172, can you give me the right tire?
Yeah.
That'll work, right?
That'll probably work. Yeah.
It's not right. What's right?
Can you change your tire size? Depends. It depends.
If it was approved, a different.
Type
size.
certificate data sheet.
Right,
There you go.
right. So it gets a little more involved, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a can you, it's not a should you, it's a how do you, right? So, backing up some, you have reference material. The only approved reference material in this case is going to be the aircraft maintenance manual. Well, what if it's so old an airplane, it doesn't have an aircraft maintenance manual? J3s did it in 1938, so then what do you do? What's your reference material? Anybody know? I know Lee knows. Come on, Lee. Alright, so there's this thing. So this is a partial list, and you can look this up on your own. You wanna take this?
Sure. So AC 4313 to be acceptable practices, methods, and techniques. Yeah.
So that's not gonna give you the part number of the tire. The type certificate data sheet through the maintenance manual will give you that. Now you call aircraft spruce. Okay, now we're rolling. So you got a tire, you got a tube, there's FAA, PMA approved parts, and now you wanna change your
How do
tire.
you want to change your tire? You got everything. That's all you need. But we go.
What are we gonna do?
This is on the airplane.
It says
So
35 pounds per square inch of pressure. Safety first,
yeah. That's
So-
it. We have to jack the plane. I heard that.
right? So you have
Should
a
we?
jack-
If we
yeah.
only have an airplane that's on the ramp, should we be jacking this on the ramp? Probably not. So have a place that's appropriate to do the work. So we jack it up. How do we take this off? We take a look at it, and we've got a nice big nut here, and it probably has a nice cotter pin that goes through it.
Pipe wrench, probably fit that right. The Harbor Freight jack, probably fit jack up the airplane, right? see what else.
You have to, you can't take the wheel off.
Cause we are trying to save money, you see.
So you can't take the wheel and tire assembly off because it's, the brake assembly's there, so we have to take the brake assembly apart, which is gonna be safety wire. So we do that, we take the safety wire off, then you have to take your 7/16 bolts, take that out, take your caliper pop, comes off. Now you have your tire and your brake disc, all one assembly is sitting on your bench.
Okay, now we're really cruising right along.
This is where the scary stuff happens, and I heard it earlier, if you
Now-
do not do something.
Now we got this thing on the bench, we got our parts sitting by. We use, as the FAA says, another regulation, you have to have appropriate tools. That's for interpretation. Pipe wrench, you might have some explaining to do. Not really the right tool to take off a 1 1/4 inch, nut, and it's gonna mar it, and it's just gonna make a mess. So can you? Yeah, sure. Have I seen a lot of airplanes that are really marred up and they look terrible?
Yeah.
So
And we know
pre-purchase
exactly why.
inspection,
When
yeah.
you see that, you know exactly why. That's the
Exactly.
wrong tool.
And we'll talk about that a little later on how to document and what we look for. We do some pre-purchase inspections for future owners and things we look at. It's a telltale sign. When you see that thing marred up and you see a pilot entry, they didn't have the right wrench.
Maybe a
Okay.
pilot trick.
So, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So-
Okay, oh, hang on.
Yep.
Do you have that $1 car key that caused that Crumman crash? Do we have one of those?
Do we reuse the one that we took off?
Right. Couple questions.
Hmm.
We'll answer those in a minute. Okay, all right, so now so we got the tire off. We've, got our appropriate tools. We have our maintenance manual present. Now the FAA walks by. Your hangar door's open. And what are you gonna do? Like you're not an A&P.
They say, what are you doing? "I'm changing
Hey,
my
what are you
tire."
doing? First thing the Fed's gonna say is, what's your, reference material? It's gonna be a maintenance manual. Oh, yep, yes, sir, I have that. Okay. Do you have an A&P? Oh, no, sir, I don't. And, he might look at your shop, look at your tools, so, you know, things to think about, right? It actually happens. I was 19 and that happened. I didn't know how to talk by the end of the day. I was so terrified. But I actually, looking back on it, I think I was legal. So fairly legal.
Yeah.
All right, so here we are. All right, so here we are. Now you gotta remove the tire.
Boy. You need tools to do that. Yeah.
Appropriate
Yeah.
tools, okay?
So what was the first thing I heard over here? It's really important to take the tire off. What should we do? Deflate the tire.
Good one, good
Yeah.
one. The
So,
maintenance manual might not tell you that. It's kind of,
yeah.
Okay.
So the key here is on the inside of your Schrader valve, you can sit here and hold that down with the ballpoint pen and get all the air out and sit on it and compress it. But the reality is you're probably not gonna get all of the air out and it's gonna be really, really tough to do that. So you gotta get a valve stem remover. So make sure you have a valve stem remover. You know, you got them from working bicycles, same one. It works
But if
great.
you unscrew it fast enough, it's gonna go ding
That's
right into
right.
your eye. So little things like that. You
Safety
do
glasses.
need
Yeah,
to
there you
kind of
go.
think about this.
So then from there, as you're on the bench, then you have your tools, so you have your deep socket, get the nuts off, keep all of your hardware and your tools together. If this was an area to work and everything's clear, it's a nice space, so you have your tools laid out, you have all the parts that you took off of whatever assembly you're working on, keep everything organized. You have your reference materials, Doug said, so that's organized. And then it will come time to split the tire. Once all your bolts are out, your disc will come off, you can set that aside, and now you're left with just two wheel halves. Sometimes the wheel halves will pop right off just nicely. And sometimes it's been sitting there for 10 years and it's really, really tight. So there's a lot of creative ways to do it, to compress it. I'm not gonna give you all the ways that we do it, but I will just say, keep in mind that if you put a lot of pressure, this is an aluminum wheel. So if you put a lot of pressure to hold the flange down when you push on the tire, you can break a tire or a wheel really easily. They crack really easily. Don't put these things in presses. And then when in doubt, you can take it to the shop, maintenance shops, they can help you press it, get it out if need be. But A really easy one is taking a wood dowel and just work the edges all the way around it. Takes some time, but it will pop off. So you got one half off and now the other half is stayed on. Get a block of wood, put it on top of that, flip it over, and then you can press it off and it comes off pretty easy. So that's usually when it's really difficult to get off because it's been sitting a while. So now inspect your wheel. You don't wanna just put that tire back on because now you're seeing all the areas of the wheel that you don't normally see during pre-flight inspection. Are there cracks on the inside? On the interlocking pieces that come together for the wheel, a lot of those might have gotten put together wrong or they're marred, so check that. If they're marred, don't reuse your wheel. It's time to get a new wheel. Then it's expensive, so.
Also on the inside, a lot of times there's condensation. Technically, nitrogen is preferred because you're not going to have that issue, but condensation does get inside the rim, and especially if it's been sitting there for a long time. So you can see the corrosion on this wheel itself, so do look for that. And if in doubt, you're not sure if it's going to pass or if it's safe, then consult with your AMPIA. That's the best thing to do. Send some pictures, things like that.
So if you have a tube in there, then now you're gonna have to get your new wheel assembly and your tube and get the two put together. So the tube and the tube assembly needs to be deflated to get it on the inside. And one easy technique is put just a little bit of talc inside the tire, shake it back and forth, it gets all the way around the inside, and makes it nice and easy to make that tire and the tube be able to move freely as you're starting to make your fine adjustments before you do the reassembly. So as you get the talc in there, get your tube put back inside, keep your valve stem out of it, and inflate the tube. It'll inflate and get into the position it needs to be. And this tire is a little bit older, but a lot of the ones nowadays will have a red dot, like a slippage dot. So line up your valve stem with that, so it's a good reference line to see in the event that you've ever been landing and you hit a hard landing. Is your tube and your tire slipping on the rim? Really good to know that. So to see if there might be a slow leak to develop if your stem gets pinched by the wheel assembly. So line that up, and then you can put your two wheel halves back together, and then slowly reassemble in reverse. Put the disc on, realign your bolts to go through, and then you have your nuts that go on. Should we reuse those nuts if they were if they were compression nuts, or if they were nylon inserts? No, that's the right answer. Don't reuse those.
How about the cotter pin?
No, don't reuse
I
the
know
cotter
everybody
pin.
here has, but yeah, technically you really should.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. Another thing that just as a pilot pre-flight, when you look at that valve, if you see that valve cockeyed a little bit, that means that the tire is moving independently from the rim, and that on this, it's very critical. You can lose the airplane, and that actually happened on a friend's airplane. So your airplane's rolling at 90 miles an hour, you apply the brakes, and these things are moving differently. And so it actually does happen, and yeah, it gets exciting. So you don't want that. Okay, so now you're reassembling. So you got your new cotter pin, you got your new nuts. What's the torque value? Did we talk about that? We didn't talk about that.
No, where would you find the torque?
Maintenance manual. Does the maintenance manual have it in there? Maybe not. 4313.2 Bravo does, huh? Right? In their table.
Your standard torque settings would always be in that, but
For a 7/16 bolt, you can actually look up tables.
Yeah.
And then the general torque values.
most of your maintenance manuals will have torque settings and stuff in the front if you're looking for it, it'll have it in there. And then, one other thing when you're just a little technique, maybe it's a little bit, getting a little bit particular about how to put a wheel and brake assembly together, is when the wheel and brake assembly come together with the halves, and they come together with the bolt, and you start tightening it up, it is possible to pinch your tube if it's deflated and it gets in between. So when you get your tire and your wheel assembly put back together and your bolts come through with your washers and your nut and it's all together, re-inflate that tire one more time. The valve stem's still out of it. Pump it, it'll stretch it back out to where it's supposed to be, and when it comes down you can feel that pinch and make sure that the wheel halves come back together, and you feel that metallic touching, and then you know that tire's not pinched in there. And then go ahead and tighten it down and get your torque. So,
Okay, so scenario, so I'm working with, well, Becky's working with Mike. Mike owns the airplane. You guys are working together. Now what has to happen? So you got this airplane back together. You ordered, like a good diligent pilot mechanic, the 32,000 safety wire, right, that everybody has.
Of course.
So you remembered that, and now you're gonna safety that, everything's back together. It's a simple procedure for the FAA's purposes. And now to be legal, you have one more step, and that's documentation. By regulation, you have to document this. So Becky asked earlier today, well, what's the importance? So, I'll tell you the importance is, and I put it this way, when we do pre-purchase inspections, when the draperies don't match the carpets, that's a problem. So, I go to an airplane and I look at it and I see brand new tires, but it's nowhere in the logbook, or vice versa. So this can reflect the value of your airplane when it comes time to sell. So it's something to think about. We're not gonna preach any way to, right or wrong, other than it is regulation. And there are specific ways to do it. This is a big mystery. Some people try to reinvent the wheel, but the basics are describe the work. Changed, right tire, Goodyear, Flight Eagle, 505 size, and then name, date, signature. Your signature and your pilot certificate number. In this case, it goes an A and B, A and P number, such and such. But in this case, it's your name, signature, pilot, or type. So if you're a commercial pilot, commercial pilot rating and number. And that makes it completely legal. We see this all the time, and I'm sure you've probably seen it in your own airplanes. When you went to purchase it, you look through the logbooks, and half the time you can't read a lot of what's in there. And the way I explain it to people, even at the airlines when we're writing things up, is when their airplane crashes Monday morning, you're gonna be in court, and it's gonna be on board about 8 feet by 10 feet, and everybody's gonna be, man, this guy might be a brilliant pilot, but you're an idiot when it comes to writing. Your writing skills are really terrible. So it's just one of those things. That looks really neat, clean, it matters. It really does. And especially for resale value of aircraft. It is something we take into consideration. So, and like I say, this, telltale sign. Did people reuse nuts? Safety wire. We safety wire this. I know we're backtracking a little bit, but how do I know the standards of how many twists per inch for the safety wire? Again, 4313-1B. It has it right in there. That thing is about 2 inches thick nowadays. And has everything from working on wood and fabric airplanes to jet engines. It's a really good document. Okay, part of the reason why we see these, so this is a challenge in real life. So you own your airplane, but your mechanic has the logbooks in Oakland, and I'm here, and I'm trying to do this. So that's a little bit of a challenge, another thing to think about. But also, there's a disconnect, it seems, when you're doing the work, and now you're a bookkeeper. You got dirty hands, you're tired. It's the last thing you want to do. And a lot of times, these don't make it in the logbook. So,
we were talking
recommendations,
about is do a checklist. So, we are very used to using checklists as pilots. We're very used to understanding a checklist and why we use it. And it's for safety, it's for redundancy, it's for predictability. And so if you're gonna do work on your airplane, whether it's a tire or whether you're doing, clean gap and rotate your spark plugs, make a little checklist. What are you doing today? What parts do you need? What tools are you gonna use? The last thing on that list should be logbook entry. And that way you're keeping track of your parts. Nothing's left over. You're keeping track of where your tools are. Nothing's left in the airplane. And you're completing the job so the logbook entry states we're complete. So it keeps a full loop of what it is, and it's kind of a dance that we're used to using checklists as pilots. So it's a good way to organize it out.
So another thing to think about, if people are using the Sierra At least they're local. And, I would at least have a good relationship with your IAAP. Like, hey, listen, I wanna save money this year, or I'd love to learn more. They might invite you, and I'm not sure what their policies and procedures are, maybe not. But anyway, you can ask. Okay, so now we've done this, we got the airplane back together, it's a beautiful day, and we gotta check this, so, yes, sir.
Just curious, in changing a tire, what about balancing? How would you go about doing?
So,
Isn't that part of the regulation?
No.
No?
not until you get to a much bigger aircraft. Transport category, then it actually goes to a certified wheel shop only, and they'll even non-destructive test, X-ray, things like that. But for general aviation, generally, I can't think of any
Yeah,
GA airplane
Um,
that would need that, even a DC-3.
Yeah, I
it
think
wouldn't.
most of the times that we've done balancing of tires is usually to address a squawk, from it, but, to take this and just, for a moment and go to the airlines where we'll have a wheel and brake assembly that needs to get replaced, that's gonna come and it's gonna be a fully assembled wheel and brake assembly that is balanced. So that's directly called out on the job cards that are, for that, and it comes from a, wheel and brake shop. So I think it comes out that way. But yeah, for these, it's not routine that you're always balancing it.
And Stones in town have balanced their airplane tires for me for free.
Oh, well, there you go, you get a free balance. So the answer modified now would be after you change your tire, you take it over and get it free balance. There,
Harbor Freight does have a pretty nice little balance.
there you go.
Okay, this is obviously it's common. Then now we're transitioning back to the pilot side. Okay, now you gotta put yourself and your family in this airplane. Is it safe? Okay. One of the ways and techniques we learned a long time ago, Tim Latimer, where we knew a mechanic that you open his drawers of his toolbox, and there was a place for every single tool. And that airplane didn't leave the hangar unless every single tool was accounted for. We still do that today. It's that serious. We might sound like doom and gloom, but it's those little things, right?
Mhm.
I know I've found a lot of tools in airplanes over the years, especially on the heavy maintenance for the airline transport. I find flashlights, screwdrivers, wrenches all the time.
Yeah, flashlights is probably the most common one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really happens. So when you're doing this, a technique, procedure you might wanna consider is your tool count. And just sort of general organization of your approach to this maintenance. Operational check, we all know what that is. It's what you do as a pilot every day. But pay really close attention. Don't sort of blow it off. This is not just another pre-flight. It's not just another run-up. Depending on what you worked on, but still, you've taken this thing apart and you put it back together, presumably, well. And then confirm the proper function. Technique, not procedure, just this is coming from us, from experience, who actually do this. Dave Diamond, you came up with that diagram out of here, departing out of the runways, if you lose an engine, that nice little diagram. Keep that in your mind, always, always. It doesn't matter what airplane I'm flying, I always do that. And it may save your life. The most critical time where you can't make the impossible turn, where are you gonna put it? These are things that should be coming through loud and clear on every single takeoff. I don't mean to preach, but it's real. Then when you do get it airborne, myself, I circle over the airport. So when that engine quits, or that part falls off, I come right back down and I have somewhere to land. I don't wanna do it in 200-foot pine trees. So, just generally speaking, those are really good procedures that could save your life. So, that's what I do.
Yeah, maybe do an extra long taxi and just listen. Does it sound different? Does it sound like that brake's tracking correctly? Do some straight ahead brakes and see if does it brake evenly like it did before? Is there anything that feels different than it did before? Don't get so eager to get on the runway and check it on there. So there's a lot of things that we can do on the ground, that come right after your post-maintenance, your pre-flight inspection, and then your ground operational check. So find if there's anything that you can do for like this for a tire change, do it.
And not to preach, but, technique, not procedure, but for me, I trust my instincts. You know what things sound like. You know what things feel like. things aren't feeling right or sounding right, and you're probably right. And I would ratchet back, take a different approach, land, whatever you have to do. Okay, let's see, next one. Okay, this is, Bjorn's really good about this. I'll let you take this one.
So,
If you can read, yeah.
yeah, so you just give some examples here of the AD search and the aircraft appliance list. So, you know, one of the reasons that, you know, we will like look and say, well, why are we doing preventative maintenance? Why is the FAA given that authority to pilots to do? If we look back even one step further and say, what is the FAA's job? It's safety. That's the whole reason why the FAA mandates and they have policies and regulations. Everything that they've put into, I'm sure they've cussed and discussed to come up with the best policies. And preventative maintenance really is there to increase safety, increase the awareness for pilots, to know their airplanes, to be more in tune with what's going on, and to be really create a safer operation for whatever the mission is for the pilot. This is another way that we can do that, is with the AD aircraft search. So if you go and take the entire cowling off of the airplane and do an aircraft appliance list. So go in there and look at your magnetos, your carburetors, your vacuum pumps, if anybody still has those. And then, I'm joking. And you know, everything, the starter motor, then come into the cockpit, look at your instruments, look at your radios. Start looking at the manufacturer, the model number, the part number. And then you can plug those into the AD search that's on the FAA website. You could pay a little bit more and have some searches that are, or for hire, that are a little bit cleaner and streamlined, easy to use. And you could have your very own AD search and compliance list ready to go for any of your airplanes. The beauty of that is when it comes time for your annual, you're walking into a shop with an AD list that's up to date. You know what to expect for your aircraft. You know if there's any reoccurring ADs that are coming along. You know if there's anything that is applicable to your airplane or not. It is not uncommon sometimes for shops to say, we had to do X, Y, and Z AD on your airplane, even if it's not applicable. Because a lot of times things are not applicable per part number installed, per the serial number, per the date. So all of these things, the more you know about that, makes you a more educated pilot, aircraft owner. I'll give you a real quick story on this. So 2018, 2019, the Cessna 210 and the Cessna 177 had a spar AD. And it was for the carry-through spar for corrosion.
He was lucky enough to have one.
I was lucky enough to have a 210.
I'm lucky enough.
I was lucky enough to be a IA at the time, and so this AD came out. I started gathering all the information about 6 months prior to the annual, and I started looking at what was going to come due on the airplane this year. And this AD had come out, and I looked at it, and I'm like, okay, great. Man, this plane's in great shape. It's always been taken care of. It's low time. I got no concerns. I took the headliner down. I looked at the carry-through spar, and it had a foam strip that was attached to it so you wouldn't bonk your head. I scraped off the foam pad with a phenolic scraper, not metal. And all this white powder started coming off with it. And I said, dang, that glue sure has turned to powder. I cleaned it all up. I had intergranular exfoliation corrosion on this spar.
The thickness of a nickel.
Carrying my wife and 3 kids. So, needless to say, my annual was coming due in about 2 months. This AD was not going into effect until about 3 or 4 months. And I started calling around for spars. They do not manufacture the spar at Cessna Textron. They have talked about it. They're going to make it out of billet. It's going to be about $60,000, not including the bushing kit. So I found a spar in Ohio. It had gone to a repair station. They did the full eddy current inspection, recertified it, $15,000 with a bushing kit. And so then I had to have the hard discussion with my wife and say, this is what we got going on. I just put a brand new Garmin panel in the plane too. So, kudos to my wife. She goes, well, I guess you are an AMPIA for a reason. So I called my buddy.
There we were.
I said, yes.
It is not going to be in the winter.
I guess it looks like we're taking the plane apart. Wings came off. We filleted the whole top of the plane apart. The whole substructure above the door on the pilot side had to come off. And we shoehorned this 84 pounds carry-through spar out of that plane and got the new one put in and riveted it all back together and put it back together again. So, not that you guys will do that, but what my point is that if you have one of these AD lists and you're up to date on it ahead of your annual, you will be ahead of the game, because 3 months later, there was not a spar from a used shop to be found. I mean, you could go down to Kenny Faith.
Yeah.
Nothing. Oh man, people called me. They bought the whole middle section of a 210 I had. I called the same place in Ohio. I called out to Bass and, you know.
And the
Colorado.
price is double overnight.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was like, it was unbelievable. So it's some of these little things that just keeps you more in check with the airplane and what you need to do to keep it airworthy, keep it safe. And sometimes it can save you a little bit of money, because yeah, the $15,000 spar was, I couldn't touch that thing for less than 25, so.
And this is a great example where maybe you're not gonna change your own brakes, maybe you're not gonna lubricate your own bearings, but knowledge is power. This is all on the internet. You all have access to this, and you all have access to a spreadsheet you can make, and you can take the serial numbers and the part numbers down of the parts that may be affected on your airplane, and that saved your bacon on that one. Unlike Mike's fancy carbon Cub, Piper came out with an AD a few years back, and it was on the tail post, and because they had a bad batch of metal. Right now, well, up until the last year, those were unobtainable because there was a big run on them. Everybody had a Cub or a type certificated airplane in that range, and which were thousands. They just weren't available. So it does really pay off to do your homework, and that's free. Everybody can do that. Right? Everybody has a computer.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, this is not us preaching. This is coming from experience. This is what we suggest. Here's why. Ultimately, you want to say, "God, am I even legal to fly?" I mean, there's a lot going on here. I got to put my pilot certificate down. Well, I can only be a pilot, private pilot, but I have to own the airplane. So these questions come up. There's a lot of them. There's a lot to keep track of to keep you and the FAA off your back. So what we do in our shop is we have a bulletin board, and we keep track of this stuff. And this is just a list of what we do. The date of the annual. We're all busy. Is it December or is it January? I can't remember. It's up there. It's staring at you. You go into your hangar every time you go to fly, and it's staring right at you. That works really well for us. Registration, you're going to do that on your Aero, but it's a lot easier if it's just up there. And oh yeah, registration doesn't expire too, because they expire like 10 or 15 years out. So insurance, maybe not so much of a legality, but kind of want someone to pay for it if I ruin it. Taxes, same thing. I don't want to take it away. Pedostatic test. When's the last time you had one? Do you need it? Are your instrument flying? Okay. ELT, that's a routine, but we need to know the date. And oftentimes the logbooks aren't even in your possession. Your mechanic probably has. So double check. You can see, actually, you can predict how big that annual bill may or may not be. Oh, I need an ELT battery this year, or I need a battery this year. So all this stuff is just being really proactive, being on top of it, and it stares you right in the face.
Yeah, it's, the oil changes, normally it's 50, if you don't have a filter, it's 25. So it's good to keep track of that and, be religious about your oil changes. I mean, it is really, it is the blood of your engine. So if anybody isn't doing an oil analysis, man, I really encourage you to do that. It's a telltale sign. It could also be a precursor when you buy a new airplane of things that aren't really wrong. A lot of times people are buying planes now from owners that don't really fly the plane, or maybe hasn't flown recently in the last 8 to 10 years. So a lot of times you can get spikes in an oil change with the oil analysis that may indicate something it's not. So it's a good thing at a minimum to get a track record of what's going on and get some trend analysis for your engine. So it's really good information. The ADs we talked about with creating your own AD list. A lot of our planes don't have life limited parts, but if you get into things like helicopters, twin engine Cessnas, those do have life limited parts. In the event that you do have, that's something I would be putting on this sheet, absolutely. When's your medical due? When, are you basic med? Are you first class, second class, third class? Do you have the phone number of your AME? Here's one that we noticed, cause you know, we're going every 6 months. Is your AME retired? Man, the week before is not the time to find that out. So, having that on there and it's on the board, you're like, you know, it's a month out, that would be really proactive, you know? And the flight review, you know, have you just recently done a certificate? Have you done your flight review? Have you done your wings program? You know, what are you doing to check that box? All of these things are, things that if, on the third thing on the list here, insurance. I will tell you, the insurance companies will love to find any one of those things on there as a reason not to do a settlement claim. Oh, you were out of annual by 1 day. Oh, you know what, you were flying in an airport that was in the Mode C Vale, and you did not have a transponder check. You weren't legal, what were you doing flying legal?
They will get out of claims. That does happen.
It's just something to make sure all of your ducks are in a row for all the little things that you might expect. And then take insurance out of it. The feds. You're flying along and you have something that's an altitude deviation, a lateral deviation, something that requires, you know, ATC talking to you. Here's a phone number. We love those calls. They'll go down this list too. Are you in annual? Do you have your pedostatic or your transponder check done? Are you current in your registration? So they're gonna talk to you about what the initial incursion is, but then they're gonna tag on and just keep digging. So, it's the nature of the beast.
Seems like a pain in the butt, but you do this enough, you tend to get this way. All right, conclusion. So, that's the reference material. That's what gives us the approval, the CFR 1443 Appendix A Subpart C, and it has the entire list of 31 items. The gotcha out of all this is the FAA defines, they specify complex assembly operations. We can't answer that for you. Nor can the FAA, because they all have different stories. It depends who your POI is, who your local FSDO is. The guy in Reno might say something different from the one in Kansas. So if you're not sure if you should safety wire this, you run it by them. That's really the only answer we can give you. It's a little ambiguous, it's a little gray. Could an FAA come in and say, you know what, Mike, you're not allowed to safety wire. You've never been taught that. We can't answer that question for you. That is a little bit of a gotcha. It's a little bit of a gray area. Sorry. It's the way the government works.
Yeah, if you have questions like that, you know, it's like, as much as nobody wants to get ramp checks, nobody wants to get, you know, visited by an unexpected visit by the FAA. We do like the FAA. But it's a great resource for us as pilots. You know, when in doubt, reach out to the FAA and ask questions. I mean, they are more approachable nowadays than I think in years past. So if you have questions about anything, it never hurts to have some sort of relationship with your local FSDO, because if you need them for anything else, it's nice to have some point of contact to say, hey, I have a question about this, can you direct me in the right direction? So it's always good to get good clarification.
The procedures, so we hammered away on the bolts. Easy thing, look at your next airplane, see if someone used a pipe wrench on it. Probably not my definition, my personal definition of proper tools. So, sorry, appropriate tools is the exact wording that the FAA uses. So, and again, that's gonna depend on the inspector. We can't answer what their interpretation is of that. Parts, FAA PMA, we've covered that. And reference material, maintenance manual, 4313-1 Bravo, and documentation, that's your final sign off. You are allowed to sign off those 31 items.
And again, completing all of these, anything that you choose to do on the list that's approved for preventative maintenance, ultimately it's gonna get you more connected with your airplane. So when you're doing that pre-flight inspection, you're gonna be looking at it a little bit differently. You're gonna be looking at it a little bit more capably as a pilot, as somebody could work on it. And it's also gonna let you know, like, a precursor to something going wrong to say, you know what, this doesn't look right. I didn't really see this fretting rivet over here. Now I'm really looking at things like that. I'm having the engine compartment open to do plugs and oil and filters. oh, what is this? I wonder if that's right. I wonder if this is supposed to be chafing. I didn't see this last time. Whatever it is, it gets you a little bit more in tune to the machine that's keeping you in the air. That's kind of the whole point of it.
Okay, there's no more raffle, so we just got question and answer time. Yes, sir.
Out of those 31, what are the top 3 you think we should consider doing ourselves?
It really depends what you're personally comfortable with, but I think what we see the most is, tires changing, because that's a consumable. Along with the tires would be greasing the bearings, because you're right there at the same time. Battery changes, oil changes.
Interior.
And we would, just as on a, you know, our opinion, that if you're not already sampling, I think sampling's a great idea. And again, for resale of your airplane, it looks great. And it takes a little bit of the, not the onus or the liability, but this is a Blackstone test. These are hard numbers. I can't lie. I can't fudge that one.
Can I do a follow-up on the oil change? So I've been doing 25 myself and then the 50 an annual with the you know, mechanic. On that 25, skipping the oil analysis on that, waiting for the one I'm gonna do at my annual, or should I do it even if the
Do you have a filter or no filter?
filter?
Yeah, I mean, 50 is probably fine, you know, I mean, if you wanna go every 25, okay. But, you know, once you get a baseline and the way a person's flying an airplane, we've seen that it's just, your numbers stay pretty consistent if it's not an issue where you get so close to TBO, your oil consumption is so high, you're always fouling plugs, you know, there's something else going on with the engine, that will start to pick up in the oil analysis, and you'll see it there.
Don't need to do it every time, but
Yeah,
do it at
50's
least
fine,
once a year.
yeah, I'd be totally comfortable with that if it was my airplane and I was doing, you know, 25-hour oil changes, so. You know, you asked like, what else, you know, should you do? You know, if you look at a tire, you're like, don't want anything to do with it. I don't have a jack, I don't wanna get down on the ground, I don't wanna get dirty and do that. Cool, don't do it. But, you know, something we didn't talk about, and it's not really a topic, but owner-assisted annuals. It's something it's a really neat thing to do, but you cannot press that upon a mechanic because it's a relationship you have to develop with an IA that's gonna say, yeah, I'm comfortable with doing that. But how would you do that? So the mechanics of that would be, with the 31 items that you can do off this list, you can open up every single panel in that airplane, you can take out your entire interior of the airplane, you can open the whole cowling, you can clean the plugs, you can change the oil. I would probably leave the filter alone and just let the IA come along and cut it open and check for metal particles inside and do that. But if the airplane is ready to go and everything is completely open, they're gonna come along and do a general visual inspection on the airplane. But they've gotten it to the point where that's eating, you know, you're taking a lot of that shop time out, which is typically what's in the bill for an annual, outside of parts and, you know, routine, you know, swaps. Once that's done, who can put it back together? You can. And what I would do is, before I would even hand off the airplane to an IA, I would make a logbook entry saying, I opened up all these panels, I took out my interior, I did my plugs, I did my oil. Hand it off to the IA, have them do the annual, and then you do a logbook entry that says, I reinstalled my panel, I reinstalled my interior, you know, keep it going. So
And
it's
that's
a
where
closed loop.
you do have to have a relationship, because if you're doing your plugs, you gapped them, you cleaned them, you reinstalled it. I, as an IA that's signing it off, I have to have that trust that you actually really did that. So you do have to have a relationship to,
Yeah.
you know, that's a really important relationship.
And if we were coming along to go, say, do a pre-purchase evaluation for somebody on a plane, and I saw logbook entries that showed, you know, Joe Blow, private pilot, did all what we described, and I saw an annual sign off, and I saw Joe Blow, private pilot, closed everything up, I'd immediately go, that's a switched on pilot. He's doing owner assisted annuals. Good. And then I would go right to the IA sign off and go, what did they do? You know, are they doing a compression check? Are they doing the bare minimum of what's required for an annual? Or are they going above and beyond? So that's the thing, is it's like, it's documentation in your airplane and your logbooks, and it tells a better picture. It's kind of like a picture of the logbook tells a great picture of what the oil analysis is.
Related to what you were just saying there, if you're doing a pre-buy on behalf of somebody and you're looking at the logbook and you're seeing that this non-mechanic pilot owner had done all this stuff, does that start to bias a potential buyer thinking that maybe this stuff should have been done by a professional instead of the guy who was trying to save a bunch of money?
If I saw somebody that had an entry there for a vacuum pump, I'd be like, no, it's not on the list.
Right, so I would look at it very carefully what they did, right? And I would even actually look at the work, some of it, right? So if it's shoddy work, that's gonna turn me off personally. If it's poor documentation, just sloppy, that's gonna affect me, on some level. But if it's done properly, done neatly, done well, then that actually would increase the value in my mind. Because this is the guy or gal that really took care of their equipment and really understood it and was on top of it. So just depends how you look at that.
And I'll give you an example. I did a pre-purchase evaluation for a guy on a 172 XP down in Torrance, California. Really nice airplane. Had a little bit too much corrosion on the inside of the wings, but it's Southern California, it's not uncommon, and it was stable. Before I got too much into the airplane, I spent about 2 hours in the logbooks. I went through the whole book that he had in there for just all the entries of the work orders, all the invoices. And I saw this invoice, and I looked at it, and I took it and I set it aside, and I started going through the logbook, and I was timing logbook entries with invoices of what was being purchased. And in that, there was an alternator, there was a vacuum pump, and there was a rear window strip, the center strip on the rear window trim, on the exterior, were all there. I'm like, okay, cool. So I looked at a 1 year span, there's no logbook entries in there. Set it aside, made a note, came along and I did the engine inspection, so now cowling's off. And I go look at serial numbers. I go back and I look at those yellow tags. Those are the ones that were installed on the airplane. There's no logbook entries. So, in a pre-purchase inspection, pre-purchase evaluation, it's not really for us to tell you what the value of the plane is. It's more to say, here's our findings in the inspection. And my feeling has always been, as an aircraft owner, is whatever I buy today is my problem when I try to sell the airplane. So I will present it to that way in a potential buyer to say, here's some things I'm finding. This isn't really up to snuff. It looks like it's installed correctly. It's been in there for 200 hours. It's clearly operating correctly. But, if you go to sell the airplane, this could be something that really kills the deal for the purchaser of your future airplane. So it's on to you to determine that. It was great. The guy negotiated back and forth. He ended up buying the airplane. It was a great airplane. He still owns it today. He's out in North Carolina. So, but it's one of those things that it's like, if we're doing pre-purchase evaluation, it is our job to find the things wrong with it, or things that are not as expected. And that would be one thing that sticks out. Sir?
Well, you mentioned oil changes. The only thing I would add to that, it's imperative that before you change the oil, go fly it for a half hour, 45 minutes. It gets all the poison, all the water, all the acids out of the oil, dries the oil out, and it can make a huge difference in the lifespan of your engine.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
So it's imperative you gotta do it. Cause I know people, they'll start it up, they'll taxi out, run it up a little bit, and all you're doing is circulating.
Right, and that's something we see on pre-purchases when we're getting a little off track, but along that line, someone will say, oh, it's sat in the hangar for 10 years, there's really no time, but I've started the engine every month. Like, that's the worst thing you can do. Because you're not
you take the filler cap and it's rusty.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
You're not boiling off all the molecular moisture in the oil, and you have to get it up to
Well, the
operating temperature.
manufacturers of the engines, both like Cummins and Continental, they do talk about this.
Yeah.
It's highly, highly recommended.
So you're suggesting before any oil change to go fly for a
Yeah.
while, bring it in hot?
Yep, bring it in hot. Plus, it's gonna drain a lot faster, too.
And if you're doing a compression check right after that with your oil change too, it's a more realistic compression check from, your cylinders are at operating temperature.
Does that really ever happen in annuals? I mean, the mechanic doesn't take the plane, go fly it, sits in the shop for a week before they get to the.
You could, just go fly the pattern, drop it off.
You didn't see him at midnight, he was going to build time.
I would say routinely at shops, no, it probably does not happen. Yeah. It's the run up and, it gets to operating temperature. They'll see the proper indications of the fuel, engine indications are correct. as required by the annual, and then they bring it in the shop and it's to operating temperature that, you know, you'd see on the ground, but, you know.
That one you'd wanna have a pretty close relationship with your IA, saying, hey, do you mind if I take it around the patch, land it? Can I be your next guy in? Something like that. That's probably the only practical way to make that happen. When you take it to a shop. Come on, we know you got it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got a question. So, how strictly do they interpret that list of 31 items? For example, you can change the starting battery for the plane. Does that extend to all the other batteries that are probably half a dozen nowadays?
You wanna take this one?
You like all your backup batteries?
The ELT battery, all the backup batteries, I probably have 5 in my panel right now. I think.
Yeah.
If you have to go into the box, I would say right there, you can't, like internal batteries, that almost always needs to be sent out to Garmin or Dynon or whoever makes it. Once you break that seal, all bets are off. You're not an avionics.
Yeah, I mean,
FAA
I'm thinking of
repair
like, you
station.
know, if you had like G5s in your panel, you know, they've got a backup battery that's screwed on the back of
Yeah,
that.
right. Yeah, that's
You
what.
know, and
Yeah.
in order to get that instrument out of the panel, you're also you gotta disconnect the electrical, your connector, you've gotta disconnect your pitot-static inputs for that. So I would say probably not. If you got enough, you know, working loop in there that you could pull it straight out of the panel and undo the battery there. I don't know what Garmin's recommendations are.
And the FAA can make the argument that is that a complex procedure? You just broke open the pitot-static lines. You just, disconnected the cannon plug.
Right, some are like that and some are like ELT, have
Right.
ELT and stuff.
And that's one that the only true answer is not from us. It's going to be the local physio. And they're gonna interpret it differently. Unfortunately, it's like going through TSA. Sometimes they check your shoes, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
But they hold the power.
I think the intent of the replace the aircraft battery is the aircraft ship battery, not, you know, backup batteries. or
When they wrote
ELT.
that was the only battery in the plane.
Say that again. Say it again.
When they wrote that rule, that was the only battery.
Yeah,
Right.
right, yeah. Good
Exactly.
point.
But if you have a good relationship with your local physio, and that's a valid question to ask. We'll see what they say.
Yeah, we are not representatives of the FAA.
Yes.
Do you have recommendations for resources for folks just getting started with like maintaining their aircrafts that could be sort of helpful, other than stuff like this?
Yeah, I mean, I know what I'd say, 4313-1B, but you would say that little one.
Yeah, there's a little pilot's handbook. It's a little pocket. It's about this big, and it's like a summary of the AC-43. It has everything you kind of would need to know on a day-to-day. It's not going to get too heavy into, you know, like fabric repairs, and if you're doing all the other stuff that would be involved in there. But it's the day-to-day stuff that's pretty handy. But as far as you mean, like, you know, if you were to, you want to get into doing maintenance on your aircraft, like what's a good resource for you to learn that?
Yeah.
The best tip I would say is ask if you could shadow with a shop, or if you take your airplane in for an annual, ask if you could shadow and do some stuff with the mechanic so you can start feeling comfortable, and just frame it in the sense that I want to learn more about my airplane. I want to be a more informed pilot, and I want to be kind of a better advocate to you, the mechanic, for what's going on out here. And the reason why that's really good is that, let's say you take off from Truckee and you land in Boise, and something happens there in Boise, and you're like, man, something en route happened. When you call the maintenance guys, you'll be more informed about how to put a squawk out there instead of like, made this sound, don't really know. The more in tune you get to it of like, hey, I know, okay, when I was up there, the engine was running rough. When I was flying along, I did a mag check. Oh, I looked on my engine analyzer. I noticed the number 3 cylinder rises when I did a mag check, but it stayed steady when I did it on the left. You know, man, if somebody called me I'm writing stuff down. I'm like, okay, I'm mentally troubleshooting it as we're talking. So that stuff really gets your relationship with your mechanic even stronger, as well as your airplane.
And to be honest, the last thing an IA wants to do on an annual is take off panels and take out interior. Right? So, by offering that as a starter, it's probably gonna make them pretty happy. So, they don't need to be doing that. All right, one more question. Yes?
You mentioned torquing the bolts on the tire. the new nuts and all that, of course, but, the torque wrench,
Calibration?
calibrated.
Oh, that'd be great, yeah.
It's gotta be calibrated.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's true.
Now, I've been
Technically,
told by
yeah.
so-called experts, believe it or not, oh, it's under 91, it doesn't have to be calibrated, which is absolute, in my mind, that's absolute crap.
Is there a different torque for 91?
So,
Well,
but anyway, that's
We
important.
have a lady named Carolina in Livermore that will calibrate any torque wrench you have.
Yeah.
And she's good at it.
We have contacts for that.
She's very
yeah.
good at it.
Yeah.
So you're not supposed to pipe wrench, you just use a
Yeah.
hammer.
Yeah.
Well, it's midnight, we gotta get it done. That's all we got, folks.
All right, round of applause for I've got something for the both of you.
Oh.
These are highly coveted.
It's like, here's my thing.